You can help support the channel by heading to our merchandise store and picking up some of our great aircraft designs created by our graphic designer. We have everything from fighters to transport aircraft, which you can choose to have printed on t-shirts, mugs, stickers and much more. Head to the description below and click the links and pick up your design today. Thank you and enjoy. So Lou, when did you first become interested in aviation?
Actually, this story goes way back in my youth. As long as I remember myself, I was always intrigued with fighter jets, especially because I was born and raised in the place I'm talking to you right now from, in Hanya Creek, where for the past 70 years, fighter jets were flying around my house, over my house. Uh, Still to this day, sometimes I meet aunties, cousins from my father's side, very old ladies, that they tell me the story that they remember me running out of the house as a toddler, wearing my underpants only, to gaze at the sky because an A7 was passing by and there was waving and lots of stuff. I don't remember that, but I will take their word for it. So
Yeah.
yes, as long as I remember myself, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. So the training program here is pretty straightforward. It's pretty straightforward. If you want to be a fighter pilot, you have to go to the Air Force Academy through a process that everybody takes in Greece in that age, about 18, 19 years old. So you are admitted in the academy. And I was lucky enough, I had flying training in the academy. The first one was a screening phase with we call it the T-41 Delta for destroyer. Actually, it was a Cessna 172 propeller aircraft. We did on that about 32 hours. First solo was in the 12th flight, I think. And that was a screening process at the first year. I was the lucky guys that I was after the basic military training. I was immediately went to flight training, so I got this very early in my Air Force career, if I could say so. And then at the third year of the academy, that was 1993, we went to a place where still Greece uses for a mother base for training, Kalamata Air Base up in Peloponnesus, where I flew the famous Dragonfly, the training version, the T-37. Bad experience though, because back on those days, nothing was political correct. So actually, my instructor, my dedicated instructor, that was sitting next to me, he used to punch me if I did something wrong, especially with the trim button. I remember that many stories about trimming this jet, and a lot of bruises on my right shoulder. I think yes, I was sitting in the left, he was sitting in the right, and he was keep knocking me, or he was pulling the hose of the mask down to make me understand that I was wrong and I need to behave myself.
And it worked, obviously.
Yes, of course, because I survived. I
Yeah.
graduated at T-37, and then after the end of after the graduation of the Air Force Academy, 1994, I went back in Kalamata again to get my basic jet training, or not basic, advanced jet training in the T2 Buckeye, the Navy
Mm.
jet with the arresting hook, etc. So that is my training aircraft roster, if I can say that.
Mhm.
About 300 hours on those.
Nice. So did you know what aircraft you wanted to go on to, going through your training
Yeah,
phase?
yeah,
Right.
A7, A7, right from the
Ah,
beginning. Yeah, so I entered the academy to become an A7 pilot because that was what I saw every morning, getting up from the bed, going outside. So A7 all the way.
yeah. So let's talk about the A7 here. What were your first thoughts on the aircraft? Because it's an ugly beauty, if that makes sense, but it's an absolute classic. But what were your first thoughts on the aircraft?
My first thoughts of the aircraft was I was amazed by the amount of books and textbooks and manuals I had to go through in order to step in the cockpit of that jet. I remember I borrowed a wheelbarrow from a nearby place to pick up the books from the library to try to carry them to my room in base because we're supposed to stay in base during the training in an A7. And the pile of the books were about yay high,
Wow.
180, 170. All these books, and I was flabbergasted. I say, I'm gonna read and study all those books. Yes, I did. Yes, that was the first thing that baffled me about the A7. But it was the only way. It was the first jet that had a HUD. You know
Mhm.
that, yeah. And it was the first actually jet after the Phantom. No, it was the first jet that could do so many things in some precise way. How can I say, especially bombing? Okay, the
Mhm.
computer, the HUD, etc. It was a pioneer in that thing. So that was my first thought. A lot of study.
Yes, a lot of studying, a lot of studying. Yeah, so you mentioned there it was, a unique aircraft and it could do quite a lot of things. But what was the main role of the A7 with the Hellenic Air Force? Was it literally all air to ground, or did you do
Yeah,
any air to air?
yeah. We the primary role was air to ground. At that time, we had a force of about 60 A7-8s. Hellenic, it was the Navy version, the E version, modified for especially for the Hellenic Air Force. The only difference with the E version was the Eco version was that we didn't have the refueling probe on the right side of the cockpit. That was the only one. Apart from that, was similar with the Eco version of the U.S. Navy. It was solely for striking targets where we need it. I can, okay. So air to ground, air to ground, air to ground. But in lieu of some other jets with the fuel autonomy of the A7, we also did some intercept missions, especially on the west side of Greece, towards Italy. So I was on the squadron at those days where we had 15 minutes readiness to take the A7 on a pair and go intercept unknown radar tracks, mostly south and west of Greece.
Can you go into your ground and flying training? And yeah, was the aircraft an easy aircraft to actually fly and get used to?
Yeah, it was as long as you do your due diligence on studying, it was an easy aircraft to fly, very reliable. It had a few, not many, a few things to be very careful of. Actually, we lost a pilot back then on the squadron due to one of these quirks of this plane, the adverse yaw condition, where if you are in a high G turn on the one side and you want to reverse your turn, you need to unload all the way to zero point 0.5 Gs and then reverse the direction of the turn. That was a bad thing on that jet, but the majority of pilots had that in mind. It was an excellent flyer at low level. We would call it back on the days the Mercedes of the sky. You could have a light cigarette on the dashboard while flying 420 knots, 50
Wow.
feet above sea level, and nothing moves. It was so stable at low level. I mean, it was tremendous and very agile at low level.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, yeah, what was the cockpit environment like as well? Was it a comfy cockpit for you as a pilot?
Yes, it was very wide, ample of room there. Even though I used to be, can I say, in the upper side on body weight, always in my career, it was very wide, very spacious, very ergonomic. It was very helpful for the pilot. We were the first jet in the Hellenic Air Force that had a moving map, pretty accurate. Actually, it was a printed film through a projector lens, but it was dead accurate if you did your updates on the INS. So we couldn't lost in this jet. I have been lost in the F-16 two or three times, never lost in the A7. Yeah, it was a great jet. great flyer. I would take it anytime. I was trusting this jet. It has a lot of armor. It was pilot oriented. Many things, and I think that is because this jet summarized all the lessons learned from the Vietnam War. The Americans did, and they came up with this jet that could do so many things, so precise. That's my opinion about the A7. Yeah, great jet.
And you kind of mentioned a few before, but what were the main strengths and weaknesses? Obviously, you mentioned down low it was very stable, but what were maybe some of the other weaknesses of the aircraft?
The weakness of the aircraft was that you couldn't go so very fast. It was not supersonic, not even transonic, a subsonic jet. So if you wanted to get away from the threat or harm's way of enemy interceptors, you had to be very cautious and expeditious in your let's say awareness. You had to expect everything. One weakness was that the speed. Uh, Another weakness was it didn't like the high altitudes. It was very slow. It could go from 0 to the limit of the airspeed 640 knots very quickly if you put on a dive that it wouldn't recover from that dive. You were dead, you need to eject, but if you eject with 640 knots, probably you will get dead. So that was another thing. Uh, that's probably all of it because I can talk all day long about the pros of this jet than the cons. Many aspects. Yeah. Yes, the main pros were that it was by design, a bomber jet. The accuracy was immense. I mean, I was lucky enough to compete in this annual bombing competition we used to have back in the 90s in the Hellenic Air Force, and the squadrons that was stationed in Crete, 345 and 340, were acing this competition for 10 years after the F-16 came in our arsenal. So we still won this competition, and I mean won the competition with the results of a BTU 50 bomb half feet from the target, something like that, spot on, bullseye, okay, 30 centimeters, 1 meter results. So you went to this bombing competition up in the Cranea range near Larissa, and you would drop, I think, 6 or 12 bombs, something like that, per formation, per pair, and we aced. 345, 340, we were exchanging the prizes for 10 years until the F-16 got his main upgrade in, I don't remember exactly what was that, Block 50. So eventually they beat us. So it was very accurate. It has, I think, the most advantageous thing on this jet was the radar warning receiver. We had back then a version of the ALR-66. It was tremendously accurate in contrast with the modern RWR system. So what I mean by that, we used to fly these Moral flights to Castellorizo Island, which is very far from Greece. It's in between the distance between Crete and Cyprus. It's the longest part of Greece to the east-southeast. So we used to fly these flights every 15 days, go up there in those islands and remind the people of the island, the Greek people, that we are here. Don't be afraid of anything. We will protect you if something happens. And the neighborhood nation was trying always to put obstacles in that mission by scrambling F-16, hunting us down in the Aegean. They never managed to get us because with the ALR we could see the radiation from 60 miles.
Wow.
Further out, we could do a small turn, 10 degrees to the right, away from them. And because we have also another pro of this aircraft was the amount of fuel it could carry. The range of this aircraft was immense. It could go all the way, 5 hours flight with no air refueling. So we had the fuel, we have the warning, and we could stay airborne for a long time. So they never got us. We always went there to the island, do three passes. Everybody was out waving. I always volunteered for these morale flights, even though it were very difficult. First dawn, first crack of the sun in the morning. So you should be in the squadron 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m. to prepare the flight, etc.
Wow.
But yes, yes, that was one of my favorite flights.
Yeah, absolutely. And was the A7 night capable with the Hellenic Air
Oh,
Force?
night it was a bread and butter of the A7. I can tell
Wow.
you that. Yeah, everything was well designed in this jet, in the cockpit and outside. Night flight was, as I said, our bread and butter. I remember one summer, I think it was 1999. On a July, I accumulated 27 hours only on July on 1998, I think. Night hours.
Wow.
27 hours in a month's time. So yes, night time was it was hard because we didn't have NVGs back
Oh,
on those
really?
days. Yeah, no NVGs. So we flew close formation, usually two ship, sometimes four ship, 2 hours flight, medium to high altitude, to a range on the northern part of Greece near Thessaloniki, Potiria range. It was a sea target there. So we would go there in close formation all the time. So if you are number one, you're okay. You just have to do the navigation. But if you are number two, three, and four, the only thing you see the whole flight before dropping your bombs is a beacon light, 33 feet on your right and on your left of the leader's jet. So we went there, drop our bombs in the range using the lead aircraft who dispense flares, big flares, the Lima Uniform 2 flare bomb that would make the night day above the target. So we would do visual dive bombing as per day in night on the sea target, 300 miles north of our home base at night.
Wow.
Go there, drop the bombs, get back information at night, and head back to Crete. Great
Wow.
time.
Oh my God. Not jealous at all, Lou. Not jealous at
Yeah,
all. It
yeah,
sounds amazing. But yeah, so what was it like getting posted to your first frontline squadron and being, I guess, combat ready? What was that like for you?
That was very intense, and very. That was the fact that actually made me a fighter pilot. My first ever squadron, frontline squadron, the 347 in Crete, Hanya, and that's why, because the level of professionalism these guys had when I got there, 1995, both squadrons, and 340 and 345 squadrons, was way above average. It was top tier professionalism, top tier capabilities. Everything was great. For for start, I was amazed by the fact that the squadron was a family. It was your second family. You would do everything together. Saturday morning coffee off duty with the fellow pilots, even the squadron commander. He
Wow.
would say, if somebody, where is this guy? For example, the younger guy in the squadron, the Americans call it the snacko. Where is he? Why he's not here? So he would call him, or he would go and he would order somebody, usually the XO, to go fetch him for the coffee in Saturday
Nice.
morning. So that's the thing we left there. I mean, I remember doing all kind of gatherings. We Greeks, we don't need actually a reason to do a gathering to eat and drink. So in any occasion, the whole squadron would go to a tavern and spend the night, given some occasion, birthdays, etc., of a fellow pilot, etc. And that was the place that you are supposed to bring your future to be wife to be approved by your fellow pilots first, and then you could marry. Actor. Yes, that was a deal. I mean, my wife still talks about that night. I brought her to such a gathering, to my second family, the squadron. and they approved it.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
Great to hear you, Lou. But
yeah,
yeah, so
yes,
did you ever fly the A7 on any large exercises?
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah, of course, of course. Large exercises was our thing in Crete. I remember at least 3 or 4 times being part of a formation of 12, one time, 16 another time, or
Wow.
24 aircraft, what we call the gorilla package, going through the Aegean from south to north for a simulated attack in Skiros Island, simulating possible future missions, real life missions, I mean. And that was very intense, very intense. I mean, the planning alone would take about 1 week.
Wow.
uh, and that was the days that we had as opponent uh, third generation aircraft. I mean F-16s with capable radar and Mirage 2000s. And back on those days, we didn't have the mentality of yet the mentality of force protection. Okay, so the deal was that the 24 A7, the Gorilla package, will go by itself in middle of the Aegean, a route. Nobody knew about this route. Low level, very low level above the sea, with minimum protection. Probably a pair or two pairs of Mirage F1 or Mirage F5 against high capable aircraft like Mirage 2000 and F-16 that were brand new at that time. But the fun part was that even in that mission that was led by our XO, he's still alive. We still talk with this guy every other day. He was the commander, the squadron leader, the leader, the flight leader of this 24 ship. Uh, we achieved to strike our targets, Skiros Airport, and we lost only two jets. One of those jets, it was me because I was the last pair with my friend John. I was squadron, a pair. We have these steps in the training. You get to flight as a flight lead on a pair, on a four ship, or a squadron or division, something like that. So I was not young, not old. We were in the last package. We got attacked by a pair of F-16. We did two cross turns. We tried to. Actually, we sacrificed ourselves so the rest of the 22 aircraft to hit the target, and that worked very nicely. We knew that would happen. But yes, that large exercises like this in air to ground role were amazing. You got all the fun. Big formation, big preparation, weaponeering, targets, everything. It has everything. That was very, very different from when I went to the F-16 air to air role. Very, very different.
Yeah, so on these exercises, did you ever work with, the Tornado guys? Because obviously the GR1s and the IDS were all air to ground. Did you ever swap notes or did you keep separate there?
Yeah, we kept separate there until 1999, where we have our first squadron exchange. It was not an exercise. We went to Bucher, Germany, where a German Tornado air to ground, I don't remember exactly the squadron, was there, two squadrons there. And we had a lot of fun flying with our Tornado fellow mates above the Black Forest in Germany. But we didn't actually encounter. Did tactical things. It was most for fun. So that's the only experience I have with a tornado.
Yes. And did yourself and the Hellenic Air Force actually think you might have to take the A7 into live theatre?
That was our purpose. We were ready to take this jet onto a fight. I have a great story to say for the night of 28th of January 1996, where we almost got in war with Turkey. I was in the squadron, not combat ready then, but I was there in the preparation while loading the jets and preparing for everything for the ultimate battle. Which at that night the weather was overcast, 500 feet, whole the Aegean, and my fellow pilots, not me, I was not combat ready. Uh, they were ready to make this happen with all kind of weapons. I cannot say the type of weapons, but you can imagine. If you
Mm.
have seen this picture of what kind of weapons the A7 could carry, yes, you need a week study to learn all of these different weapons. So we had all of those back then, but the most important thing was the morale and the trust maintainers and pilots showed for that put on that jet. The jet was excellent. It was combat ready. It was very sturdy. It was reliable. Yes, I would go even today. I would go into a fight with an A7, hands
Wow,
down.
really?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
yeah.
Many,
And
many differences. Many, many differences. I mean, I can talk all day about A7.
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to talk a bit more about some stories here. So the next point of mine is, yeah, you shared one kind of there, but have you got any memorable stories from your time in the A7 that'll be interesting for our viewers? I'm sure you've got
Yeah,
plenty, Lou.
most memorable stories was that one time I was almost crashed in the water because we had this very, very big radar altimeter, a round dial, yay big, in front of you on the right side. It was very accurate. You could see the needle moving, going from 35 feet to 34. You could
Wow.
read 34 feet. So everybody was relying on that round dial, and you wouldn't rely on the HUD at that time because the HUD it was in its primitive form. Uh, Few informations were on the HUD, so we for low level flying we would trust the radar altimeter dial more. So I was caught up in a situation that the needle was stuck, bad weather, no visible horizon. I thought I was 300 feet. I was 3 feet. Yes, and usually, and I didn't know how I get there. I got there. Hopefully, my number two, because he couldn't see me lying abreast on his left, and he gazed down and he sees me skimming the sea. The sea was calm, and he told me, check your altitude. I think you are too low. And then, by mistake, I shouldn't be there. It was an obvious mistake from my side. I checked the HUD and I saw the HUD. The current was pegged all the way down to the right side. Oh, what is that? And then I zoomed in to 300 feet. And then I realized that it was extremely low. I was almost crashed. I don't know how I survived this thing. That was very intense. Still, sometimes at night.
Nightmares, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So other stories about the A7. The most prominent feature on the A7 that it was very handy was you could go to the bathroom very
Mm,
easily. I have to
mm.
say that because I have heard so many stories about the F-16 and the P-bag. Those gringos have written a song about that. In the A7 was easy peasy. It was this very, very nice big funnel attached to a hose in between your leg. You would kick it out of its way, you would grab it, you would do your business while sitting, no strapping, very safe, extremely safe, okay, and go back with your flight. And I needed that. I needed that at some point. I remember a flight, September 90s, something, 98, 99, probably 2000s, where in September usually we hold the Parmenion exercise, the biggest exercise where the all Hellenic forces, Navy, Army, and Air Force participate in this large-scale exercise. But that September was the weather was again overcast. Happens that in Greece, 500 feet overcast all over Greece, sea and mountains. And I was ordered to go from Crete, Suda Bay, to Andravida, where our fighter weapons school is, to make an exercise with the British Navy that was in the area western of Peloponnese at that time. So the order was I should take off. I would take off with an A7, go land in Andravida. They would attach in my jet a pod emulating harpoon signals. So I would go low level into the sea on the sea against some British ships emulating a Harpoon missile, go forth and back for them to train, and then I would go back to Andravida, dismantle, unload the pod, and get back to Sudan. So I knew the weather was bad. I strapped in the jet. I took off, very low cloud ceiling, 500 feet. So the moment I took off, I am immediately dove towards the sea because here in Crete, the airport, one fighter wing, is located in an elevated plateau, if we can say, on the northern part of prefecture of Hania. The elevation is 400 feet, 430. The overcast was at 500, so I have a, let's say, 100 feet margin. As long as I got gear up and I was clear of the ground, I dove into the sea. I went the usual route we had, going northwest to Peloponnesus. And at some point, I was talking with a radar, and the radar guy, the controller, told me, call sign I think was Lelaps Kilo. Yes, something like that. Lelaps Kilo 54. Do you know that you are now the only aircraft flying in the Hellenic FIR? And I say, why? Because the weather is from 500 feet overcast up to 45,000. Okay, that's a first. And actually, at that point, I didn't like what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew the weather was bad, but I couldn't imagine that I was going to be the only aircraft flying at that point of time in the Aegean. So, but it got me triggered. So I open up again the book, a small booklet we have with the route and times and the track. I make sure that my ANS was trustworthy. I did probably double the updates I used to do, because and it was good move from my part, because when I went into the Peloponnese, I was forced to fly in between the valleys. I knew them. I have been there a lot of times. But if you would look up, you would see a layer of cloud covering the top of the mountains left and right. So you should know where you were going. Okay. I made it to Andravida in between the mountains. I have been there many, many times, so it was the easy part. They loaded the pod, emulating the Harpoon signals. I went down to the western part of Peloponnesus, near the borders with Italy. We did the thing with the British Navy. I went back and they told me, the weather is very bad, you cannot go back to Crete. And I say, okay, I was prepared to stay there. So as I was undressing and preparing to go out of base, because I got a call from my squadron commander, you need to get the jet back. We need the jet tomorrow. Okay. But the weather is not good. Screw the weather. You know how to do it. You get there the first place. You can come back. Okay. The truth is that I was not so, how can I say? I was a little bit afraid, because I have encountered the bad weather going to Andravida. I have seen how bad the weather was doing the things with the British Navy. Hopefully, the A7 had a very nice radar detecting the thunderstorms. You could see the thunderstorm very, very nicely on your radar as sweeping. You could go around the thunderstorm, easy peasy. But when he told me that I need to come back, I was a little bit scared. I said, what the heck, let's do it. So I strap on the jet, refuel the jet. Extra fuel, please. I asked for the maintenance guy to put extra fuel, because I knew I would need that. I took the way back this time because I had extra fuel. I avoided the mainland Peloponnesus area. So I went all the way from the west side of Peloponnesus over sea, because it was very easy. The the cloud cover was 500 feet above the sea level. So I have a whole 500 feet to fly in between above sea. The sea was level. It was a little bit rough. That was making easier to fly low level above the sea. So I went all the way around south from Andravida, all the way around from Peloponnesus to go east bound for Crete. And when I was in Crete, I contacted the tower, and he told me that the airport was closed. Okay, then, do we have any alternatives? Yes, you can go to Carpathos, another island 60, 70 miles or more east of Crete. Okay, I will go there, but as I was flying over the airport at about 5,000 feet into the cloud, I had transitioned to IFR flight, no visual cues, so solely instruments. My squadron commander comes on the radio. He gives me another frequency, private frequency. We dial in the private frequency. Hey, what I told you, you need to get back here. You cannot go there. Okay, what should I do? Okay, do an IFR approach, attack and approach in Suda, and I will make a prayer, and you will find a clearing, and you will land. But the tower told me that we are below minimus. No, screw the tower. Do as I say. Go to the holding point, ask permission to do attack and let down. Long story short, I don't know what he did. I finished up my tack and let down, no ILS, no radar, no nothing, just a mere tack. Very, very precise, very, I was on the needle, on speed, on course, didn't deviate at all. I gathered all the resources I had in my mind about how to fly instruments. And when I was approaching the minimas, suddenly an opening in the clouds, runway was there, I landed, everything ended up
Thank
nicely.
God.
But I don't want to do that again.
No.
No.
That's incredible. But before we move on to your time on the F-16, do you think the A7 was still a capable jet before it went out of service with the Hellenic Air Force?
Yeah, it was. It was because I know a lot of things that many fellow pilots, A7 pilots, don't know. Because when I was transitioned to America to go for the big course to transition to F-16, a lot of pilots there in the Air National Guards, our instructors, were from our Air National Guard of the United States, which they flew the A7. So when we get to the F-16 part, I will tell you the story. But I knew by heart, and I was verified later in the States, that when we decommissioned the A7, it was airworthy and very capable. And the most important thing about A7, it was that at that time we decommissioned that, 2002, we had a strong force of 102 aircraft. 102 aircraft solely for bombing purposes is what make your enemies fear the most. Okay? Because if you get them on the air in the first wave, how many of those will you shoot down? Half of them? So it means 50. But the A7 could take a huge amount of bombs. Okay? So, just for thinking.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
So, how many hours did you get on the A7 in total from your career flying that jet?
750, not many.
Not many, that's a lot. No. I would give anything for 10 minutes in it, Lou.